of work all over the country. I'm actually based here in Ohio, but we do capacity studies, demographic studies, like housing studies and enrollment projections, and then, of course, everyone's favorite, redistricting. Maybe, okay. So we calculated a programmatic capacity for your corporation, and I just want to go through a couple different types of capacities that you'll likely see and hear about. There are three main types of capacity. First, a fire capacity, and this is, of course, the number of people that a building can safely accommodate. Oh, there. These are usually very high numbers. This is really the number of people you can safely stuff into a room. We would never fill a school with this many students per classroom. So if you look at my little hallway here, that's what this is showing. It's an example hallway with 6 different classrooms. Fire code usually says around 45 people can fit in a classroom. So using the fire capacity, we would be seeing a capacity of 270 for this little hallway right here. The next type is the design or architectural capacity. And this is the number of students that the school was originally designed for. So if it looks like a classroom, it is being used as a classroom. In my example here, we have 6 classrooms being loaded to 25 students per classroom, and that gives us a design capacity of 150. I don't know why it's doing that. And then, like I said, we calculated a program capacity. So this is really the functional capacity. It's the number of students that a school can effectively educate given its programming. This takes into account things such as special education rooms that cannot hold a full class load of 25 or more students. Also resource rooms, which are typically pull-out spaces that we don't assign a capacity because it's small group work where students are pulled in and out throughout the day. So in our little example hallway here, we have, again, the same 6 classrooms. 4 of them are being utilized as normal general classrooms. 1 is a special education classroom, and the other is a resource room. So the programmatic or functional capacity of this little hallway, in my example, is actually 110. So the program capacity is what we're going to focus on today. We did calculate a design capacity for each school as well, but in terms of planning, you typically want to plan to that program capacity because these are programs that need a space to exist, and it's not like they're going to go anywhere. So elementary and secondary schools the capacity for these are calculated a little bit differently. At the elementary school level, it's pretty simple. You just add up the number of classrooms multiplied by their associated class size to get your total capacity. So general classrooms, we multiply this by 26. That's the average K through 5 class size. Special ed classrooms, we're multiplying by 10. That's an average for the special education classes that your buildings house. ML or ELL classes are housing 15 students. ELC is housing 16, and then special education ELC classrooms are housing 10. So like I said, just add all of that up. That gives us our elementary capacity. There's an added level of complexity at the secondary level because we need to account for teachers getting a planning period throughout the day. So we do a similar calculation there. We multiply all of the class size or all of the class types by their respective class sizes, but then we apply a scheduling factor. The scheduling factor in this case is going to be 85.7%, and that accounts for every teacher getting 1 planning period per day. At the elementary level, we do not apply a scheduling factor because when students leave their classroom to go to like a specials, like an art or music, their classroom remains empty during that time. At the middle and high school level, a new set of students is then, when students leave the classroom, a new set of students then comes in, which is why we need to account for that scheduling or that planning period throughout the day.
So Karen, if I could interrupt real quick, you know, if you get to this later on, I apologize. So I follow the secondary nuance with the prep period. If we were in a situation where we had to basically say to teachers, if you're on a prep, you're going to go to a teacher's lounge or a workroom instead of being in your classroom because we got to put another classroom during your prep in that classroom to try to maximize our space. That would help us if we had to do an adjustment to give us some more space. If you're following, I'm asking.
Yes, it absolutely would. The districts that I've worked with that have entertained that, it hasn't been the most popular idea, but it is certainly something that can be done. Some districts have even looked into like taking a couple different classrooms and putting teacher offices within those, so everybody does have their own space within that, and it still adds capacity to the building when we take a couple classrooms offline. But yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
So like I said, we're going to focus on the programmatic capacities tonight. If you want to see what the design capacity of the buildings are, that is available within the report. So this table or these tables show the breakdown of the space types within each building. So at the elementary level, you have a total program capacity for all your elementary schools of 5,213. And then last year, your enrollment was just under 4,000, which gives you a utilization, which is just enrollment divided by capacity of 77%. That is a pretty good number for elementary schools. We typically try, like when we're doing a redistricting process, we'll typically try to keep schools anywhere between like 75 and 90% utilized. Something I do.
What would you say would be a critical percent? 95?
90 is really when you want to start looking to make changes. 95 is tough just because you don't have that flexibility. If you have like an especially large class size coming through the school, it can be tough. If you need an extra space for them, you usually won't have it.
Thank you.
Something about the elementary that I want to point out, we do have Grassy Creek in here duplicated. We calculated a capacity for this building as it currently sits with the ELC in it, and then one without the ELC if the ELC were to move to a different space for whatever reason. Looking at the middle school, we calculated a capacity of 2,025 with an enrollment again last year of just under 1,700, and that gives us a utilization of 83%. As Dr. Edsel kind of alluded to, there is more flexibility with scheduling at the middle and high school level, so 83% is great. Honestly, it may feel tight in that building based on how the spaces are being used and scheduled, but 83 is a really good utilization at a middle school. And then looking at the high school buildings, we calculated a total capacity of 2,949 with an enrollment of 2,144, which gives us a utilization of 73%. Just something to note, we did also calculate a capacity once the renovations are complete at the high school. That's available within the report. That adds a lot of space within that building, which is excellent, especially given all the developments going on. Just looking at Google Maps of your district, you just see dirt moving everywhere.
So just as a point of emphasis, don't need any response. If you notice the north building capacity of 1,020, something to remember. Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm. So I did put these maps together. These are showing the locations of all of your buildings within the school corporation. So the orange and blue lines are the overall school corporation, and then each of the dots is showing one of your schools. The elementary schools are the green dots, middle school is orange, and then the high school buildings are in purple. The circles around each one is showing the utilization. So if a building's well utilized, it's showing with a green outline. If it's a little bit underutilized, it's showing in blue. So you can see like Ray Crow, Clark Pleasant Middle School, Grassy Creek, Break a Day, and Pleasant Crossing are all pretty well utilized buildings. They're kind of right in that range where we want to be. The high school buildings, Whiteland Elementary and then Clark Elementary, are all a little bit underutilized, but not vastly so. You're certainly not looking at greatly underutilized buildings. And that is all I have. Are there any questions?
So Karen, this is really good data. Thank you again. Helps us greatly, especially as we can refer back to this and even update it in future years. So probably a couple questions. Whiteland Elementary has a program capacity of 71%, but that's like probably one of our smallest elementaries with respect to the least number of sections per grade level. I think maybe 3 sections, where many of our other elementaries will have 5 and 6 sections. There's probably a couple of spaces that are not utilized yet. I guess where I'm going with that question is, I could see 71% being bumped up pretty quickly if we were to all of a sudden see 100 kids enroll there.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, we don't have a lot of empty classrooms in that building, a handful.
Mm-hmm.
Did you gather that a little bit from your virtual conversations with the principals?
Yes, but what I heard a lot of is we don't have a lot of space. I'm pretty sure that they were referring mostly to not having extra classroom spaces or empty classrooms within their buildings. But their class sizes were not filled all the way to that like 26 students per classroom level that we're
Yes,
utilizing.
that's always a debatable item between principals and myself. So
Sure.
I understand that. Probably the same kind of vein as Clark Elementary's got an addition. It's got a very older section too. Without doing any measurements, I know those classrooms are smaller in square footage than probably the rest of ours. So there is some rationale of really those class sizes can't get too much bigger probably than what they are on average. So even though it's 67%, I could see where there would be some concerns about how large to make those class sizes, or even whatever other empty classroom space is available. And that's just a statement, not necessarily a question, but those are the two that I watch carefully, even though they're a lower percentage, knowing that could quickly increase between Clark Elementary and Whiteland.
Yeah, and with Clark in particular, if you wanted, we could go back and adjust the class sizes at that building. These are all standardized; they're the same
Right.
throughout. But if those classrooms are significantly smaller than the other ones, and we're not comfortable putting 26 students in those classrooms, that's certainly something that we can adjust.
We'll just keep an asterisk on that one. Yeah.
Okay.
The questions the board may have. Let me ask you this. If we wanted to fast forward to like either this coming spring or even next fall to update this data, that probably would be easily doable on your part?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very, very much so.
Any challenges from your perspective as you put this report together?
No, your principals were wonderful. They were very responsive to me. I don't usually get that with every district I work in. I think the thing for you to be watching it, and I'm just saying this, I've worked in Center Grove for years. That development, it could come on quicker than you're expecting, and it could have a pretty big impact.
Yes, you are correct.
So it's something to continually watch.
Yes.
And make sure you're keeping an eye on the utilizations of your building.
No doubt. And I would say this, we're also watching, and you mentioned this just a few minutes ago, just our early learning center, our preschool students, and we're trying to expand it. We're trying to be very strategic about expanding it to other elementaries. And, that's in reference to the Grassy Creek additional wing, but we're putting some classrooms in some other elementaries. So that could be a shifting target too that we may have to adjust down the road. Any other questions or thoughts?
The high school part, this is based on the addition being completed or not?
Not on this slide. This is current.
This is-
Yeah, once the addition's on, the capacity is like in the 3,000 range for just the main building.
Yes.
It might be high 3,000s.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have an academic wing, we'll renovate the interior, and so that will give us a lot of capacity
Mhm.
for growth. Well, again, I appreciate all the work that you've done for us, Karen. Thank you for your time tonight. Great help. We'll make this obviously a live working document that will continue to reference and possibly update in the near future. So thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Take care.
See you.
Thank you.